Hoi, gewaldig. Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're starting Daf Chafei, Daf 25, Masechta Yevamos. Friends, this daf is jam-packed. My oh my. So it starts off, continuing with the sugya from yesterday about Reuven who has an affair with Sarah. Okay, what do you want me to tell you? But then, we get into Hilchos Nedarim and stuff like that. Hilchos Gittin, B'fanei Nichtam, B'fanei Nechtam. We get into, excuse me, I have a shtickle cough. It's a gift from my brother and sister-in-law, I think. Excuse-moi. Remember when I used to Masechta Tainus? I couldn't get out 2 words without coughing. I was like drinking tea and whiskey and all sorts of things to try to help. Oh my gosh. Anyways, Palginon, excuse me, Palginon Dibure and Adam Mesim Atzmo Rasha. Friends, Adam Karvetz al Atzmo. These are gewaldige sugyas. So, anyways, we're going to get into all these things today. Friends, we're going to start in Daf Chafei Amud Aleph. 5 lines into the page. V'uchsa kavase de Rav, v'uchsa kavase de Rebbe. Ho 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 ho. The halacha is like Rav, and the halacha is like Rebbe. Frag the Gemara, kasha hilchsa. This is a question. I don't understand. How could the halacha be like Rav and like Rebbe? Who could tell me what Rav says and what Rebbe says? Somebody today from Groove was asking me today, do I record the Babylon Talmud podcast with like people over there? Because we fooled her, because I asked you guys questions. So right, she's been listening to the podcast. Baruch Hashem. Let's go weiter. So who could tell me what Rav and Rebbe said? So it's talking about a situation where Reuven is suspected of having a relationship with Sarah, who was married to Shimon. The Mishnah had said that Bezdin forces Shimon to divorce Sarah. So the question is why? So Rav says the reason why Bezdin forces Shimon to divorce Sarah is because there were witnesses. There were witnesses that testified that Reuven in fact had an affair with Sarah. And because there are witnesses, that is why we force Shimon to divorce Sarah. Now, Rebbe disagrees, and he says that even sort of like a chashad, a suspicion, is enough for Bezdin to force Shimon to divorce Sarah. So now, the Gemara now says the halacha is like Rav and the halacha is like Rebbe. So kasha hilchsa. I don't understand. How could it be like both? So lo kasha. So we say it's no question. How bekal the pasuk or bekal the pasuk. So it depends if it is a rumor that sort of died down, or if it's a rumor that persists. Kal lo pasuk veleko edim ki Rebbe. So if there is a rumor that has not died down, that persists, so then even if there are no witnesses, we could still trust it. Oh my gosh, the cough is coming back. This is schwer. It's very schwer. Fine. Where am I? Kala delo pasuk v'leka edim kirebi. Fine. Kala the pasuk. If it's a rumor that kind of dies down, v'ika edim, and then in that case there have to be witnesses. So if it's a rumor that has not died down, that has persisted, so then you don't need witnesses. But if it is a rumor that has died down, so then we need the witnesses. Kirab, like Rav says. What's considered a rumor that has persisted? Like how long does it have to persist to be considered persisted? So Rabbi says, my mother told me. Now of course Abai was an orphan, so it's like his nurse who raised him. Dumi demata yoma ufalga, that the suspicions that circulate in the city are considered significant if they last for a day and a half. Okay? V'lamar nela t'lo posuk beni beni. But that is only if it persisted for a day and a half without any interruption. Have a posuk beni uveni or posak. But if there's an interruption during that time, so then it's not persistent. It was interrupted. And even if there was an interruption if it was an interruption because people were sort of scared into the interruption, so that doesn't count as an interruption. Right? If the only reason why there was an interruption is because people were threatened, people were scared into interrupting the rumor, into sort of contradicting the rumor, so then it's irrelevant. And also the rumor is only significant as long as the subject of the rumor, in this case Reuven, doesn't have any enemies. But if Reuven has enemies, then we suspect that it's the enemies who did it. Maybe I'll chop a stick of water. Yeah, I don't have any tea, you know what I mean? I was gonna buy tea, but I didn't. What do you want me to tell you? Usually at this point in the season, it was unexpected to get a cold at this point in the season, which is why I had my suspicions yesterday, which were confirmed. Not exactly confirmed, but pretty much confirmed this morning. Anyways, friends, I'm going to chop a stick of water. Alright, I even chopped an Advil, so hopefully that'll be nice. Tanasim, we learned over there, Hamotzi, where's over there in either Gittin or Ksubis. Hamotzi is Ishto Mishum Shem Ra. Okay. A fellow, right, Reuven divorces his wife Sarah because of a rumor. Lo Yachzir. So you can't remarry her. Right? If Reuven divorces his wife or let's say Shimon divorces his wife Sarah because of a rumor that maybe there's an affair going on between Reuven and Sarah. So, even though in general, when a husband and wife get divorced, they can get remarried, but in this case they cannot, because the reason for the divorce was out of a suspicion that Shimon suspected Sarah of having an affair with Reuven. In that case, Shimon cannot remarry Sarah. Mishum neder lo yachzir. Or if it's because of a neder, oath, vow kind of thing. So, like for example, if Sarah says to Shimon, I'm not making any more chicken soup, and Shimon doesn't know what to do because he doesn't want to make the chicken soup, and he loves Sarah very much, but he loves chicken soup very much too. So he says, well, Sarah, I guess if you're not making chicken soup anymore, there's no point in us being married. So they get divorced. So in that case as well, he cannot remarry Sarah. Okay, I hope he finds a different place to get chicken soup. Friends, let's go weiter. Now, in both of those cases, the reason is because what happens in the event that Sarah then goes and marries somebody else and they have children, and then Shimon finds out either that the rumors with Reuven were false, or when Sarah is married now to Levi and they have children and everything, she goes and they do a Hataras Nadarim and they undo the vow. And now she's making chicken soup again. And Shimon says, wait, what? I didn't know you could do that. If I knew that you could undo that vow and you'd be making the chicken soup again, I would never have done that. So in that case, what happens? Then the get becomes invalid retroactively, which means that they never actually got divorced, and then when she married somebody else and they had children, those children are mamzerim. It's a big problem. So therefore, we say up front that if Shimon is divorcing Sarah because of a rumor or because of chicken soup, so we tell him up front, we say, look, fellow Shimon, you're not going to be able to remarry her, and that's final. If you want to do Hataras Nadarim, do it now, because you're not going to be able to do it later. So we say that in those cases, you can't get married, you can't remarry. Shalach l'Rabbi bar Rav Huna l'Rabbi bar Rav Nachman. So Rabbi bar Rav Huna sends to Rabbi bar Rav Nachman, Yelamdeinu Rabbeinu, teach us, Rabbi bar Rav Nachman, Konas Ma'u Shiyotzi. What if Shimon married her nonetheless, right? So let's say Shimon suspected Sarah of having an affair with Reuven. He then divorces Sarah, and then he finds out that it was bogus. So we just said that they're not allowed to get remarried. that if they get divorced because of a rumor, they cannot get remarried. What if he remarried her anyways? Does he have to, can they remain married? So Amar Leitonino. So Rabbi Rav Nachman says, well, we talk about our Mishnah. What does our Mishnah say? If you have Ruvain, who is suspected of having an affair with Sarah, who's married to Shimon, and Bezdin forced Shimon to divorce Sarah, so even though Ruvain married Sarah, they cannot remain alive. So, what? No, they cannot remain together. Again, Sarah, Shimon suspects Sarah of having an affair with Ruvain. Bezdin forces Shimon to divorce Sarah, and Ruvain then marries Sarah. Says the Mishnah that they cannot stay married. Now, there's a few sort of problems there, but anyways, the point that the Gemara wants to make, though, is that, you see, it's a situation where there was a rumor, they got divorced, there was a marriage, and the marriage cannot stay together. So we see that they cannot. So now in this case, when Shimon simply suspects Sarah, they get divorced, then they find out that it was a rumor. If they get remarried, so then they cannot stay together. To which Rabbi Bar Funa says, wait, but those cases are not similar. Firstly, in our Mishnah, it says that the Bezdin forced Shimon to divorce Sarah because they were, certain that this affair happened. Over here, it's talking about where Shimon, on his own volition, divorced Sarah. So that's already different. Rabbi Rav Nachman, Masnisa Nami Otzia Tanan. Whereas Rabbi Rav Nachman says, no, our Mishnah is also talking about where Shimon divorced Sarah. It's not talking about where Bezdin compelled Shimon to divorce Sarah. But even so, even if Shimon divorced Sarah in our Mishnah, he wasn't compelled to. But nonetheless, Midami, are these two cases similar? Hocha Baal v'osam Boel. In our case, with Sarah and Shimon in the Brisa, it is Shimon divorcing Sarah, and then Shimon remarrying Sarah. Whereas in our Mishnah, it is Ruvain who's marrying Sarah. So they're not comparable. I mean, you're trying to bring me a proof from our Mishnah that says that if Ruvain marries Sarah, they cannot remain together. But our Brisa is not talking about when Ruvain marries Sarah, it's talking about when Shimon remarries Sarah. So it's different. Omerle, Shapir Dami, Dodi, to which Rabbi Rav Nachman says, no, you can compare them. Hacha Amur Rabbanon lo yichnos v'imkonas yotzi, Hachanami Amur Rabbanon lo yachz v'imkonas yotzi. No, just like in our Mishnah, the rabbi said, look, Ruvain cannot marry Sarah, and if he does marry Sarah, they cannot remain married. So the same thing over here. The rabbi said that if Shimon divorces Ruvain if Shimon divorces Sarah because of a rumor, so the rabbi said that they cannot get remarried, and therefore if they do get remarried, so then they cannot remain together. Velohi, to which the Gemara says, but still that's not a good argument, it's not a strong enough argument, because Hasam alume alma lekala, hacha aminon kombe bekala veleise. Still, the Mishnah and the Brisa are not comparable, because in the Mishnah, it's significant, right? The fact that it's Ruvain who's marrying Sarah is significant, because Ruvain is the one who is suspected of having an affair with Sarah. And by Ruvain then going ahead and marrying Sarah after Shimon and Sarah get divorced, it only strengthens our suspicion, right? You see, it was Ruvain. The second Sarah got divorced from Shimon, what happened? He didn't waste a beat. Is that the phrase? I don't know. But he went directly and married Sarah, so it only strengthens our argument that they were having a relationship in the first place, and therefore they cannot remain married. However, I'll say over here, when Shimon divorces Sarah because of a rumor and then remarries Sarah, so maybe I'll say the point was that he divorced Sarah because of the rumor of adultery. However, when he looked into it further, he must have realized that it was simply a rumor and it was untrue, and that is why he's remarrying Sarah. So therefore, you can make the argument that they're dafka opposite situations. In the first situation, the fact that Ruvain's marrying Sarah only strengthens our suspicions about Ruvain. Whereas over here, when Shimon remarries Sarah, I can argue that he remarried her dafka for the opposite, because he realized that it was bogus, that it wasn't really true. Friends, moving on to our next Mishnah. Hamevi get mimidinas hayom ve'omer b'fonei nichtov v'fonei nechtom lo yisa es ishto. Friends, who can tell me what this talks about? This takes me back to Mishnah class in 9th grade with Rabbi Avi Pollack. Where does Rabbi Pollack live? I feel like he lives in Eretz Yisrael now. I don't know. Yeah, Rabbi Pollack in Torah Academy of Bergen County. I think we learned Masechta Gittin in Mishnayos. I think, anyways, so b'fanei nichtov b'fanei nechtom. So this talks about if a get is written in Chutz La'aretz, and they bring it to Eretz Yisrael to deliver to a woman, so that she could be divorced from her husband. So because we can't necessarily trust that the get was written properly in Chutz La'aretz, so therefore we need a witness to come and testify upon delivery, b'fanei nichtov b'fanei nechtam, this document that I'm delivering, it was written in front of me, it was signed in front of me, and he testifies about the validity of the document. So, hamevi get mimdinas hayom. So if you have Reuven, and Reuven is delivering a bill of divorce from Chutz La'aretz v'omar, and he says to the woman, b'fanei nichtov b'fanei nechtam, that this document was written in front of me, it was signed in front of me, I'm testifying about the validity of the document, lo yisa es ishto, he shouldn't then go and marry this woman. Let's call her Sarah, because it's suspicious. Sarah is an Eshes Ish, she's married to some guy, and Reuven comes and delivers the get, says, yeah, it's a kosher get, you're divorced, let's get married. Suspicious, no? How do you know that maybe he just wasn't lying so that he could just marry her? Well, I'm sure that they dated first and everything, and alright. So it's probably like, okay, do you want to get like a coffee or something? Or I don't know, maybe pizza. I don't know. What do you guys like to do on dates? I don't know. Well, I mean, let's go weiter. Fine. So, so he says, fine. Meis, haragte faragnu, if Reuven kind of delivers different news to Sarah, he says, your husband died, maybe a special military operation or whatever it is. So Reuven comes and says to Sarah that your husband's dead. Or he says, haragtiv, I Pashit murdered your husband, and therefore he's dead. Haragnu, or we murdered your husband. Laisa es ishto, so he then shouldn't go and marry Sarah, right? So if Reuven comes and says, I killed your husband, or your husband's dead, he shouldn't then go and marry Sarah, because it's suspicious. Maybe he's only saying that the husband is dead so that he can marry her. Rabbi Yehuda Omer haragtiv lo tinose. Rabbi Yehuda says that if Reuven says that he's the one who killed the husband, so then Sarah cannot get married at all, i.e. he's not trustworthy, right? If Reuven comes and says, I killed your husband, that you can't rely upon that to allow Sarah to get remarried. Haragnu tinase ishto. But if he comes and says, we killed your husband, so then Sarah can get remarried, and the Gemara is going to explain why that is. Now, says the Gemara, Taima de Mimdina Sayom, de Ole Kosam Chinon. Says the Gemara that the reason, right, what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said that if Reuven comes from Chutz La'aretz bearing a bill of divorce, and he says, he should not then go and marry Sarah. So we say, Taima de Mimdina Sayom, the reason why it would be suspicious if Reuven then goes ahead and marries Sarah is because he's dafka bringing the bill of divorce from Chutz La'aretz. I.e., when you bring a bill of divorce from Chutz La'aretz, because the people there are not Bekiyin, because they're not experts, So therefore they have to testify about and therefore when Reuven comes and does that, and he testifies that it was written in front of me, it was signed in front of me, he's playing an important role over here. And there's significance to him saying he's making a difference over here. It's upon him, right? It's his work, it's his word, it's his involvement, which is what's enabling Sarah to be free to marry somebody else. Therefore, we cannot rely upon him, right? Upon this sort of input of his, if he's then going to go ahead and marry her. But let's say he's bringing a bill of divorce that was written in Eretz Yisrael where you don't have to say b'fanei nechtam, so then his role is really superfluous, is really irrelevant. And therefore, him saying b'fanei nechtam doesn't make a difference. It's just basically, he's delivering a get, she's divorced, he could marry her. Right? So we're not relying upon him. He's just sort of the deliverer. So Yisas Ishto, he would be able to marry Sarah, after a few dates and stuff. But one second. But what about, the Mishnah says that if Reuven testifies that Sarah's husband is dead, maybe he died in a special military operation or something, and then, so if Reuven testifies that Sarah's husband is dead, that we're not relying upon Reuven, the Omar Mar, because we said Isha Daiko Minazba, that the reason why a woman is able to get remarried with the testimony of only one witness is because she is going to do her research and ascertain that is really true, and that her husband is really, really perished. And therefore, the role of Reuven here in delivering the news is really circumstantial. Does that make sense here? Maybe not. I don't know. It's really like superfluous. It's not really important over here because she's going to do her own research anyways. And still we're saying that Reuven should not marry her. Meaning, so we wanted to argue that if, in the case of a bill of divorce, if Reuven delivers a bill of divorce to Sarah, and the bill of divorce is written in Eretz Yisrael, where you do not need to write b'fanei nechtam, where Reuven would not therefore have to say b'fanei nechtam, because in Eretz Yisrael they're experts. So in that event, if he comes and says b'fanei nechtam, it really doesn't make a difference. It's irrelevant. It's not necessary, and therefore he can go ahead and marry Sarah. However, I don't understand when it comes, if Reuven would come and say to Sarah, your husband died in a special military operation, so then in that case, we say that Reuven cannot marry Sarah. Why not? His declaration is really, not important because she's going to do her own research anyways. So shouldn't he be allowed to marry her? So awesome. Leka ksava hacha ika ksava d'tnan ma ben get lemisa shaksav mochiach. The difference is that there's a document. When it comes to the get, there is actually a document that is attesting to the fact that Shimon is divorcing Sarah, and therefore, if the document is written in Eretz Yisrael, where you do not need to say b'fanei nechtam, so you have a document to rely upon. This guy's role is superfluous, so if he could marry her. But when it comes to testifying that her husband died in a special military operation, so in that case, there's no document to rely upon, and therefore there's no document to rely upon. There is therefore more significance to his word, and therefore he should not be the one to go and marry Sarah. All right, friends, things are about to get geschmack. You ready? Meis haragtiv haragnu loisa esishto. So if Reuven comes and testifies that either Sarah's husband is dead, or haragtiv, if Reuven comes and testifies that I murdered your husband, lo yisas, or haragnu, or we killed your husband, lo yisas ishto, so he cannot then marry Sarah. Who knew to lo yisas ishto, halachar tinase. Oh, friends, you hear that? We're saying that if Ruvain comes and he says to Sarah, I murdered your husband. So your husband's dead. So she's a widow. She can get remarried. But Ruvain should not be the one to remarry her, implying, okay, Ruvain can't remarry her, but somebody else can, i.e. his testimony is valid. So, he can't marry Sarah, but she can get married to somebody else, which means that we trust his testimony. Rav Yosef says, Ploni Ravani la'onsi hu va'achim mitzdarfin lahargo. Letzoni roshehu v'atorah amra ha'tashis yadchem roshe lios eit chamos. That, let's do that again. Rav Yosef, but Rav Yosef says, Ploni Ravani la'onsi. What does that mean? It means Shimon says that Ruvain raped him. And it was against his will. And Shimon then comes with Levi. They both testify against Ruvain that he raped Shimon against his will. So Huvachim start from the Hargo. So Shimon and Levi can join together as witnesses to kill Ruvain for what he did. Lirtzoni, ho ho ho. But what if it's slightly different? What if Shimon testifies together with Levi that Ruvain raped him, but it was consensual? So in that case, Roshu, well, then Shimon is saying that he consented to homosexual relations with Ruvain. And in that case, he's implicating himself, and therefore we can't trust him anymore. And the Torah says that you cannot join together with the Rasha to be a witness. So what do we see? So we see that in a situation where one implicates themselves, they cannot be trusted as a witness. So therefore, in the case of Ruvain testifying to Sarah that Ruvain, murdered her husband, so he's a Rasha, and we can't trust the testimony of a Rasha. So how come she's now allowed to marry somebody else? Maybe you'll say, but when it comes to testifying in order to enable a woman, to testify that a woman, her husband died so that she's not, stuck as an aguna forever, she can go and marry somebody else, she's free to marry somebody else. So we're lenient to the extent that we even allow just one single witness to testify to allow her to get married to somebody else. So therefore I might think that even when it comes to this concept of maybe we suspend that over there as well, and say that even in this case where Ruvain implicates himself by saying that he murdered Sarah's husband, and generally speaking that would make him a Rasha and we would not be able to believe him, but in this case, in order to enable Sarah to get remarried, we do believe him. Menashe says, Gazlan Devrein Kosher Leidus Isha, Gazlan Devrei Torah Postel Leidus Isha. But Menashe says that a thief, a midoraisa thief, a midorabanan thief is allowed to testify that a woman can get remarried. What's a midorabanan thief? For example, a gambler. A gambler cannot testify; it cannot be a witness. So midorabanan is not allowed to be a witness. So now, but for Eidus Isha, he's allowed to do it. To testify that a woman can get remarried, he's allowed to testify. Gazan the Vitora, but a thief midoraisa, postul Eidus Isha, is not allowed to testify to enable a woman to get remarried. And therefore, over here where Reuben is saying that he murdered Sarah's husband, so that's a deoraisa. It's against the Torah to murder. You're not allowed to murder, friends. So in that case, we shouldn't believe Reuven that he murdered. Right? He can't be trusted as a witness that he murdered Sarah's husband. Therefore, how can she marry somebody else? So Nema Rav Menashe Dama Rabbi Yehuda. So let's say, well, Rav Menashe holds like Rabbi Yehuda. That Rabbi Yehuda had said in our Mishnah, Haraktiv lo tinase, that when Ruvain says that he's the one who murdered Sarah's husband, she cannot marry somebody else. So let's say that Rav Menashe is holding like Rabbi Yehuda, that she cannot marry somebody else because he's making himself into a rasha by saying that he's a murderer. Amalach Rav Menashe. So Rav Menashe will say to you, Anadami afilu l'Rabbanan. No, I would even the rabbis are in line with me, with my opinion. The time of the Rabbanan Hacha, the reason why the rabbis say over here that she would be allowed to get married to somebody else is Kedirava. It's like Ravidam or Rave that says Rave, Adam Karv Eitzel Atzmo, Vein Adam Mesim Atzmo Rasha. That a person is related to himself and he does not make himself a Rasha. So therefore, a person is considered related to himself, and Karov is Pasul Eidus. Right? A relative cannot testify about a relative, and since a person is related to himself, so he cannot testify about himself. Because he can't testify about himself, so therefore he's not implicating himself. A person doesn't make himself into a Rasha. And therefore, the rabbis say for that reason, right, Palginon Dibure, we basically split his testimony in half, right? So for example, when it comes to right, Ploni Ravani Lertzoni, that when Shimon testifies together with Levi that Reuven raped him and it was consensual, so we can break it in half, right? Right? We can say Adam Karva Eitzel Atzmo Vein Adam Mesim Atzmo Rasha. We do not believe his testimony with regard to him implicating himself, but we do believe his testimony with regard to the fact that Reuven is a rapist, and therefore Reuven's in trouble. Now, we would say the same thing here, that we can trust Reuven's testimony with regard to the fact that Sarah's husband is dead, but we do not trust him with regard to the fact that he's saying that he did it, and therefore she can get married to somebody else. So Lema Rav Yosef Damar Rabbi Yehuda. So let's say that Rav Yosef, who says that in the case of Ploni Ravani Lertzoni, the fellow is a Rasha and he's not believed. So let's say that he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore in this case, when Reuven says that he murdered Sarah's husband, so she cannot get married to somebody else because he's a Rasha. He can't testify that that Sarah's husband is dead. So Amalach Rav Yosef on the Amri Afil the Rabbanon says, no, I could say even like the rabbis, Vishani Edesisha Dakilu Barabanon, that specifically when it comes to the testimony of a woman in order to enable her to get remarried, the rabbis are more lenient, and therefore, even though yes, when it comes to Ploni Ravani Lertzoni, Shimon would be considered a Rasha and he can't testify at all. But over here we would say that you could testify that even if you testify that you killed Sarah's husband, nonetheless it would be trusted to the extent that Sarah would be able to get married to somebody else. Rav Menashe, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rav Yosef would say Dafka Rav Menashe, who says that when it comes to Gazlan the Oraisa, is Pasul Edesisha. So Rav Yosef would say that Rav Menashe Dafka holds like Rabbi Yehuda, that in this case, because we're talking about murder, which is the Oraisa, so then we cannot trust him, and Sarah would not be able to get married to somebody else like Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah had continued, Haragtiv chule haragnu tinase chule. So the Mishnah had said that the Chacham said that if Reuben says that we killed your husband, so then she can get married to somebody else. Ma'ishna haragtiv, ma'ishna haragnu. What should be the difference between Reuven saying that he himself murdered Sarah's husband, or that he was part of a group that murdered Sarah's husband? What's the difference? Amr Yehuda ba'Omer anayisi im horgav. What it means is that I was with them, but I didn't participate. V'atanya, and we learn in Brisa, Amrula Rabbi Yehuda, they said to Rabbi Yehuda, Maisei belistem echod, that there was a story with a certain bandit, Sheyotza Lehari b'Mzigas Kaputkaya, that they were taking him out to kill him in the crossings of Kaputkaya. And he said to them, L'chu imrula le'esha Shimon ben Kohen, go tell the wife of Shimon ben Kohen on Yeraktiv as Baila that I killed her husband Shimon ben Kohen. Bichnisasi lelod, when I was entering into Lud. Ve'amrila bichnisaso lelod, some say it was when he was coming into Lod. Ve'isiu as ishto, and they nonetheless allowed Shimon ben Kohen's wife to get remarried. So the rabbis want to say to Rabbi Yehuda, you see, even though this fellow is saying that he's the one who murdered her husband, he's believed. Rabbi Yehuda says, what? That's not a proof. No, it means that he was saying that he was with the murderers, but he did not actually take part. Katani, 1 second, but how can we trust his testimony anyways? It says that he was a bandit. Shenitfas al yedei listius. No, it says that he was sort of involved, he was there with the bandits, but he didn't actually take part. Katani, but it says that they were taking him out to kill him, which means that he must have taken part. No, it was a court of idol worshippers, of Gentiles, and that is why they did not. So that's why they were killing him, but not because he actually was involved in the murder. Says the Mishnah, if Ruvain and Sarah come to Shimon, and Shimon is a mumche, he's an expert judge, and they come with a problem. They say, Sarah is not going to make chicken soup anymore. And Ruvain says, this is a very big injustice. This is not right. I shouldn't have to make my own chicken soup. And then Shimon says, look, I can't seem to find any way to be matir this neder. Sarah is not going to be making any more chicken soup. And then they get divorced on this account. So then Shimon should not go and marry Sarah. It's suspicious. They came to be matir neder. He says, no, there's no way out of the neder. Because of that, they get divorced. And the next thing you know, he's marrying Sarah. Doesn't look good. However, if it's a situation where Shimon was part of a 3-person bezdin, where Sarah did meyun with her husband, she was a ketana and she refused her husband, or she did chalitza in front of this bezdin, right? As we saw in the videos that Diana posted in our WhatsApp group, right? There was a bezdin present when for the chalitza. So if he was part of that bezdin, well then theoretically he would be able to marry her because he was kind of part of a bezdin. He wasn't alone on the decision, so he wasn't sort of we don't suspect that he was just sort of acting in order to try and marry her because he was part of a larger kind of council. Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, ha hitira yisoena, implying though that if he did enable the neder, so then he could marry her, right? Meaning, we said that in a situation where Reuven and Sarah come to Shimon, the expert, they say Sarah says she's not making chicken soup anymore, and Shimon can't seem to find any way to be matir the neder, and they get divorced. He can't marry her, but if he is matir the neder, and now they remain married, and ultimately they get divorced, or he dies, well then he would be able to marry her. Ma'iskin, and what are we talking about? Ileim b'chad, chad mimatzi matir. But if we say that it's just talking about where he did it alone, but is one person alone able to be matir a neder? Ve'amar B'chia bar Ovin, Amar Rav Amram, Tana, Hataras Nadarim b'shlosha. That Hataras Nadarim has to be done with 3. So how could it be that he was matir a neder alone? Okay, so he must have been part of a bezdin of 3. But michashide, But then would they be suspected in any event? We learn in the Mishnah, our Mishnah said that if Me'un or Chalitza happened in front of a Bezdin in which Shimon was one of the members of the Bezdin, then he would be able to marry her afterwards, because we don't suspect the entire Bezdin. So the Olam B'chad, so really it is talking about one. So it's talking about one, but the halacha is that if it's an expert, then you can have just one judge, right? If you have three judges who are not experts, then you need three. But if they're experts, you can matir and neder even with one judge who is an expert, and therefore, as a single expert, if he's not matir the neder and they get divorced, he cannot remarry her. But if he is matir the neder and they remain married, and then the husband dies or they get divorced, he would be able to marry her. The Mishnah had continued, that if Sarah did Me'un or Chalitza and Shimon was part of the Bezdin, so then he would be able to marry her, because we don't suspect the whole Bezdin of being corrupt. Time of the Bezdin, I'll betray lo. So implying that we only trust Shimon because he was part of a Bezdin of three, but two would not be enough. Why should that be any different than the following brayso? If you have two witnesses who are signed on a purchase of a field, or that they're signed on a bill of divorce, there's no concern about foul play with these two witnesses. And if they go and marry this woman after the fact, or get involved in the business deal on the field, it's fine. Higufa kamash melon. La'afukim yimanda omer meun b'fnei shnayim kamash melon meun begimel. To which the Gemara says no. The enachinami. If there were two people, they would also be trusted, as we see, like the two people that are testifying about the field or the get. But the whole point of mentioning that he was in a bezdin of three was to make the point that meun, in fact, needs to be done in front of a bezdin of three, that it cannot be done in front of a bezdin of two. That's the point. Is that we're saying that meun davka is done in a bezdin of three. Ibarlu, they asked a kasha, konos ma'u sheyotzi. So let's say Shimon, right? So the Mishnah had said that if Shimon says that he can't find any way to be matir Sarah's neder, and they end up getting divorced, he can't go and marry Sarah. What if he did? If he did marry Sarah anyways, do they have to get divorced? Rav Kana Omar Kanas Motzi, Rav Ashi Omar Kanas Eino Motzi. So Rav Kana says if they got married, so then they cannot remain married. Whereas Rav Ashi says they can remain married. Tani Lehu Rav Zuti Tiver Rav Papi Kediver Omer Kanas Eino Motzi. And Rav Zuti by Rav Zuti Tiver Rav Papi taught that, like the Mandamar, like Rav Ashi, who says that if Shimon marries Sarah, they could remain together. The Rabbi said to Rav Ashi, do you have a tradition for this, or are you just learning it out logically? He said to them, Masnisin Yitztak, our Mishnah, Haniton Mishivcha v'nishtachara. We learned yesterday that if Reuben was suspected of having a relationship with a Canaanite maidservant, and she was freed, whether it's Chob Miniskaira, or from a Gentile woman and she converted to Judaism, so then he should not marry them in motzi. And if he does, so then he does not need to divorce them. Therefore, out of these suspicions, we don't make them get divorced. So here also out of a suspicion that maybe Shimon was being dishonest in his dealings with Reuven and Sarah, we're not concerned about that, and they could remain together. Cool. That was Daf Chafei, Masechet Yevamos. I'm going to run. Peace out.